What's up, queens? Welcome to the Female Dating Strategy Podcast, the meanest female-only podcast on the internet. I'm your host, Savannah, and today we are back with another one of our lovely guest hosts. I'm really enjoying this series, by the way. This could just go on forever. Please submit more applications to be a podcast host because I'm really enjoying getting to meet so many awesome women. But today we have Patricia with us today, who is going to talk to us about what I think is a core concept of FDS if you're new here. And if you're not, you're really going to enjoy this episode because it's always nice to refresh the FDS fundamentals, as we say. And Patricia has pulled together an awesome episode for us that does exactly that. But before we get into that, Patricia, would you just like to just introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about your FDS origin story and why you decided to apply to become a podcast host?
Well, thank you so much, Savannah. That was such a nice introduction. Hi, everybody. So happy to be here. Super excited.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Well, like many FDSers, I had a very squirrely boyfriend, and I always try to stay with him and just talk about it and just communicate. And then eventually I got some brains and I left him.
He grew some brains.
It was a terrible story. I should have been a roaster screwed at one point, but yeah. Long story short, I found FDS because I was like, how can it be possible that I even got to this point that my boyfriend doesn't want to sleep with me, but he does want to sleep with other women? And I'm like accepting that and trying to, how can I have stooped so low in my values to have been like that? And so that's when I found FDS and I started leveling up in a very deep way. And I put my appreciation for myself and my love for myself as my very, very core values.
Nice.
And this is what we're going to talk about today. Yeah, thank you.
Gosh, what a scroty boyfriend. How can you be like, I don't want to sleep with you, but I want to sleep with other women? Like, why do men think that other women are just queuing up to shag them? I don't get it. Some of them should be lucky that even one woman is willing to do it. Talk less of an imaginary queue.
I think it was less about trying to spread a seed and being horny. I think he was actually psychologically distraught with Madonna whore complex and really, really deep fear of intimacy. But that is not my problem, right? That is his problem to go to therapy for.
Yeah. And I just feel like the whole dynamic of sort of, because if that was his way of thinking, he could have just ended the relationship. I mean, it's not strange to me because I understand why scrotes do it. They need that sort of safety net in a woman. But the idea that you have a woman that you're willing to mistreat, whilst you're looking for other women just makes no sense to me.
To be fair, he did tell me a few times, you should break up with me. But I was like, no, but I love you. Pick me. Classic pick me.
I guess, yeah, you could have walked away, but that is also such an abdication of his responsibility because he also could have ended it and chose not to.
Yeah, I always felt like he's stringing me along. But then again, I had the choice to break it up, right? And eventually that's what I did. Oh, it was such an amazing moment. I walked around the house with a big black trash bag, emptied all of the shelves with his stuff into the trash bag, put it all in our spare room, in our study. And then I left the house and I told him, like, I don't ever want to talk to you again. Come pick up your shit. I actually did an FDS before I was FDS. I blocked him on WhatsApp and I blocked him on my phone so he couldn't reach me. He just had to come and pick up his stuff.
Love it. Block and delete.
Thanks.
That's it. Absolutely love it.
Thanks. It was an amazing moment. It was very empowering.
So now you've given us your FDS origin story. What are we discussing today, Patricia?
So basically, this is a story of how I left my country after trying to do that for a long time, even though I probably met the love of my life. And I chose to leave regardless, based on these very, very core FDS and just feminist values of putting myself first, maximum female benefit, appreciating myself enough to know that the opportunities that I created for myself are valuable and I shouldn't throw them aside for a man, even if he's amazing. And it was probably the best relationship I had, like somebody who actually really saw me and respected me and we had an amazing love. But I don't want to give the gist away. So let me just take you through the story. I'm not going to touch on politics in a real way, but just to set the stage, I'm from Israel, or at least I was from Israel up until a few days ago, because I just recently made my dream come true and I left the country and I'm now in Amsterdam starting a PhD. I just started my PhD today. It's super exciting.
Queenship. We love that. We love an educated queen.
Thank you so much. I'm studying solar cells, so that's also like intertwined with my core goals as a human being, as an engineer. Super, super, super excited. And yeah, Israel, just like a sentence about that, has been going to shit in a very real way since before the war. And I was starting to create some opportunities for myself. I actually sat down and thought like, okay, what can I do? Like I have a master's degree. I work in the industry. I signed up for a conference in Vienna and I started like writing submissions for PhD positions in all kinds of big cities in Europe, to Vienna, to Berlin, to Amsterdam. And eventually Amsterdam went through. I got accepted. And basically what happened is I was invited for an interview in mid-December. And in the same days that I was invited to the interview, like pure serendipity, I met the most amazing guy, like really vibrant, really the kind of person that I always was attracted to, but it never worked out. I guess, I don't know, maybe I never had the proper self-esteem, or it was just a really amazing love story, really, because we both like reinstilled the trust in relationships for each other. Because I was in shitty relationships for a while and he was in shitty relationships for a while. It was really beautiful. And yeah, with this like opportunity that I really, I worked hard to create. And then there are moments where I was thinking like, I can just ignore everything that's happening here in Israel. And like, it was literally becoming very hard for me to spend any other day there. Like each day that I spent there became harder and harder with the war and like, oh my God, it was just terrible, really terrible. But on the other hand, I told myself, okay, I can just ignore all of it. Like people ignore a lot of things and just be with this guy. And I can have babies with him and I can have a home with him and I can just have this.
And I think, something that is easy for women to tell ourselves is that, oh, I can go back and get my PhD. It'll be fine. If I set up shop with this guy, if you have a family, I can go and get my PhD and pursue my dreams later, right?
I'll tell you honestly, the PhD, I'm telling you for real, the PhD wasn't never a focus of mine. I never planned to do a PhD because I like to work in industry. The PhD is my ticket out of Israel because I had a really, how do you say, cushiony?
Kushti.
Yeah, I had like a really good job with a high pay, stable, big company. Like I was comfortable. I still have a gazillion friends. My life was perfect, except for everything that was happening around me. And it was really about like adhering to my core values against everything else, like against the life that I created for myself of comfort, of stability. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's hard. That's really, really hard I wouldn't say give it up because I know you have the ability to go back to that and even ascend to even greater heights. But in that moment, that's a really tough decision to make, really tough. And then on top of that, you met a guy who is, from the sounds of it, he seemed like your dream, high value man.
Yeah, it was a hard decision. There were moments in time where when I was like lying in his arms, felt so happy and so loved.
Oh, I can feel it.
I was just like, fuck Amsterdam, fuck the PhD. I don't need any of that. But yeah, I think after I went to the actual interview and I was here and I got a taste of what it's actually could be like, I understood that I need to go forward with my dream, regardless of what's happening with the man. And this is the theme of the episode, as I see it, is about how our personal goals as women, as individuals who happen to be women, are more important than the men, even if the man is high value.
Yeah, and I think that is such a powerful thing because even when I first got into FDS, I feel like FDS is easy to stick to, right? When you're meeting scrotes because you can block and delete. You can be like, I'm not putting up with this. I'm not doing that because, he's a scrote, right? It's easy to just be FDS.
It's so obvious to recognize what is subpar.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And I've always said to women, the true test of your, I don't want to say commitment to FDS, it sounds like a religion, but the true test of your values is when you meet a guy that you really like and a guy that isn't a scrote and a guy that who treats you well. That is when your FDS values are going to be tested, because when you're in that situation, like, you were talking about Patricia, it's so easy to then start compromising on your principles and values because you really like the guy and the guy is really nice and he seems high value. But that's really when you sort of have to double down on your integrity. You have to really know who you are and what your values are. And that will also make you stronger as a person, even if it feels really, really difficult to tell a guy that you like no, or tell him that, this isn't going to work out for me because it's not the right time or we want different things.
Preach.
Yeah, so that is, and I've experienced that myself, since I've been into FDS. It's always really hard when you meet a guy that is actually decent. That's when FDS becomes very challenging.
Do you want to share? You don't have to give like all the details, but if you...
Oh, I feel so vulnerable.
Oh, you don't have to.
It's not.
How do you see your personal goals more important than men, especially if they're decent?
That's a good question. Okay, so I'll give an example, right? I've often said I don't want to have kids because I think I'm child free.
That's exactly what my guess was. Yeah.
Yeah. But then when I see a guy, or like, like when I saw a guy that I liked and he was, into having children, and I saw that he was good with kids, like he was good with his like nieces and nephews, I was like, oh, am I really child free? Like, would having a kid be that bad? And it was like around that time where I swear like my body was just like playing tricks on me. So I noticed that my hips just got wider, like randomly.
What?
I don't know, apparently that's the thing. Like, I mean, women's bodies can change throughout their 20s. So my hips were getting wide, and I thought, it feels like, I don't know.
Your body is like telling you, let's have a baby now.
But the thing is, I still didn't have that maternal instinct for a kid, but I was like, am I really child free? Like, could I possibly maybe squeeze out one? Because I wouldn't just stop at one kid. I always said if I had kids, because I've got like 3 siblings and I've loved having siblings, so I would never just have one kid. I'd want at least 2. So I was like, was it child free? Like, is it like, I could maybe deal with it, get her, but then, do you know what I mean? Like, your mind just goes to all these places. And yeah, I did find myself thinking like we could just be like a pet, but then I was like, I don't want kids. It's not part of my life plan, and if it's part of his, then it doesn't mean that he's a scrote or that it's bad. It just means that we're just not compatible.
That's very tough to realize that.
Yeah, yeah.
I know that story from different versions. Like my best friend is child free. I am wanting children. I don't know if there's a word for that, but yeah.
And I also feel like, because I was saying to Patricia before we started recording this episode, I've been thinking a lot recently about the way in which women, we're sort of groomed from very, very young to have a man at the center of our plans. So we almost, for example, we might, choose which universities to go to based on how many men there are. I know that was a thing for decades at the university I went to in the UK, where it was like a running open joke, not joke, that women chose that particular university because of the male to female ratio. I think it was about 70% male, 30% female.
Is it a technical university? Just out of curiosity.
No, it was it was just to dox myself. A technical, but no, it was a very like masculine environment. So engineering and like STEM were its main thing. So it attracted a lot of men to that institution. And then we almost sort of, we start planning our careers. So we start talking about, like when I take time out to have children, we sort of anticipate there'll be a gap in our careers. We move around the country, to move in with a boyfriend. We very quickly, or it's quite easy for women to almost play the role of a wife when they're a girlfriend, etc., etc. So we're sort of been groomed to sort of...
Yeah, fuck that.
Exactly, fuck that. But we've sort of been groomed to sort of, see a man as a plan.
Yeah, it's exactly it. And even plan around it. And thank you for setting the stage. It's something that I also wanted to say about the whole notion of how I set out for this journey, because I'm actually 34. And I was really keen on finding a relationship and on finding a partner. I feel like I'm really ready for that. And also, I wanted to move abroad. And it's like, it doesn't really compile. And at some point, I decided that I'm going to think like a man in the sense that I'm putting myself in the center. If I were a guy, I wouldn't be saying, oh, but first I need to get a wife and then I will move and fulfill my dream of a career abroad. I wouldn't be thinking that. I would be putting myself in the center with my goals, with my expertise, with my privilege that I was able to get an education and all the things. Like the relationship thing is something that is, it comes in and out of your life. And I think that enabled me so much freedom, like escaping this pressure from my family, especially my mom, like, oh, you should get a partner before you move. It's like, Mom, I tried to get a partner. I don't have a partner right now. So I'm going to do what I need to do for myself. And if a partner comes along, he comes along. You know what I mean?
Great. Yeah.
Because I do want to have kids, this kind of like ovaries pressure. I don't know. How do you say that? Like eggs pressure? We say in Hebrew, but you can say ovaries pressure.
Eggs pressure.
Of like, oh my God, I have to get a baby because my eggs are going to die soon. It's like, that's not doing me any good. Like, I came to a point that I know that I want to have a family. And this is the gist of it, that I believe in myself enough and I appreciate myself enough for everything that I am, that I know that this amazing man who saw me and respected me and was my beautiful lover and helped me a lot. Like, he wasn't just my lover. He didn't just get along with my friends. He also came to my house the night before I left and helped me pack up my electric piano because I couldn't do anything anymore. And he washed the dishes and he took out the trash and he put all my luggage in my car for me leaving. Like, that's how supportive he is. And the important thing is not to see that as kind of like a once in a lifetime, like fateful event that somebody saw me. No, I'm amazing. He saw me, and other people will also be lucky to see me. And I don't need to give up on my dreams to hold on to him.
Hold on to a guy. Absolutely. And, something that has always stayed with me, especially when it comes to men, is that if you've had it once, you can have it again. There's been guys where I've really thought, like, damn it, that was such a missed opportunity. Like, I'm never going to experience that again, or like, that's my last chance. And then another one comes that is even better than the last one. Then another one comes.
It blows your mind, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you've experienced it once, you can and will experience it again. And if not, it will be better because the later experiences will meet you at the right time as well. And you can enjoy it a lot more. Like, if I look back at my dating history and the sorts of men that I settled for, I would have never imagined that it would get better. I thought that that was it, but it's really not. Like, you will feel again, and it will be with a different, it may not be with the exact same guy in the exact same way, and that's fine, but you will feel it again.
That is really inspiring.
Yeah. In a way, it's exciting though when I see a good guy, and even if it doesn't work out, it's like, well, I know that, that feeling will come around again. It's, I don't know when, but, you'll feel it again. And then when you do feel it again, you're like, yeah, I'm feeling it again, which is nice.
Yes. And you know what? On a spiritual level, you could say that actually the being that's experiencing these beautiful emotions and connections are you. So when you open yourself up to feel this, if we would look at it as each love is greater than the former one, then it's actually we that are growing in our capacity to love, in our capacity to communicate better. Like, even during this time,
Yes, so true.
I talked to you about this with Savannah about this also in our pre-conversation, that Savannah was always saying on the podcast while I was listening to them that what makes a relationship good is not how long it lasts. A relationship can be good as long as it lasts, even if it's short. And that is something that is really important. And I think that if we can enjoy a good relationship, we're also learning how to set our boundaries in a way that is elegant, in a way that is friction free, but also very respectful for ourselves and the person in front of us, recognizing our boundaries, knowing what's important to us. That is so valuable. That is so valuable. And that you take with you to the next relationship.
Exactly. And I feel like people tend to judge a relationship success based on how long it lasts. And whilst that can be an indicator, possibly, like there are couples who are happily married for 50, 60, 70, 80 years or whatever,
But that's the thing, they're happily married.
they're happily married. Yeah, that's the caveat. Because if we look at it, logically, every relationship is either going to end through death or separation. There's really no way out of a relationship. Hate to be morbid, right? And statistically speaking, it will end in some form of separation, like most of our adult relationships. So even though I think it's important to date with intention, so if you are looking to get married or to have a family, that's important too. But it's also, I think, equally as important to just be in the moment. So when you're in the moment, you can actually assess the relationship and think about, like, how is it making me feel on a day-to-day basis? Do I feel safe? Do I feel loved? Do I feel protected? Number one. And two, like Patricia said, is that you can then begin to develop, yourself in that relationship. You will also grow in that relationship. And even if it doesn't last forever, you will still take a lot, from that relationship. And that's also a success.
I think so. I definitely think so. And each time that I was able to see, I don't know, communication pattern that I wasn't totally satisfied with, or I was able to see my own patterns, like I learned that I'm anxious, but it's not just anxiously attached. Apparently, it's anxiously ambivalent.
Okay, stop the bus. Okay, stop the bus. Put into park. So, you all know about our episode on attachment theory. I feel like attachment theory is a useful starting point.
Oh, I heard the podcast. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but first of all, my biggest takeaway from that, and I also talk about it with my other friends when we talk about it, when we talk about the theory, even if they don't know about it, or even if I'm introducing it to them, exactly what you said, that understanding if somebody is avoidantly attached, for instance, but it's usually the case with men, is interesting on a self development path, whatever. It makes no difference to understand that if the person is not fulfilling your needs. That is the important part, for sure.
I wonder with women as well, like, I think the jury's out for me on attachment style because as somebody who, I thought that I was an anxiously attached person, but then I realized that when I'm in relationships where I feel safe and secure, I actually have a very secure attachment style.
Oh yeah, of course. I totally agree with you also that I actually re-listened to that episode not long ago, like maybe last week or something. So I also agree with what your point about, an attachment style is not set for one person throughout all of that person's relationships. And also it can change with time. Totally agree with that. So I would say that I have anxiously ambivalent tendencies. And that makes perfect sense. Like I talked about it with my therapist because my dad was like some of the time he had rage issues and some of the time he was the sweetest man. So then I developed this mechanism where you gauge the relationship to see like, oh, are we cool or are we not cool? And then you look for proof that you're still good. So basically this could be a story of its own, but also what I'm trying to say is that because this relationship was secure, I could also learn about myself. Because my partner is secure, I saw my anxiously ambivalent tendencies in play and I could see that like in such a clear way. What happened is I was expecting him to call one day and he didn't call that evening. He texted me the next day, but I had already put myself in some kind of like, I was playing a movie in my head. And by the evening when we met and he asked me if I want to meet, and he told me, oh, you can always call me. But I had already set myself in motion and I was feeling anxious, like for real. And by the time he got to my house, I had convinced myself and had told two of my friends that he's going to break up with me, which he didn't plan to do at all. It was just a regular day for him. And he was like, what is going on? What's up? And never mind, long story short, I understood that instead of trying to gauge the situation and creating some kind of tests for the person to complete to prove his love to me, I could just say, hey, is everything okay? Like, how are you feeling? That is like mind blowing. And those are things that I'm taking with me.
Definitely, that is, yeah, I can completely relate to that story, Patricia, because it's almost like, because like my sister, who's been on the podcast before, she's often said that when you're in a healthy relationship or a marriage, it can sometimes be challenging because it's almost like a mirror is also being, flashed in your face about
A really clean mirror.
things about yourself that actually, you need to work on, or things that, you need to perhaps, develop. So I completely relate to your story about completely like freaking out when he didn't contact you when he said he would, because I've been there before. And that was when I sort of realized that I've got like the crazy girlfriend tendencies. Because my partner's really calm, like he's so calm, and he once said, like, he said to me one time, you've got a work ethic that I don't have, and I have a calmness that seems to evade you, and that just basically sums us up.
Oh, the wording of that sentence. Oh,
That's literally what he said.
on point. It's so lovely.
And it's actually true. Like, I always thought I was quite a calm person, but compared to him, it's just like, I'm literally like, I don't know, the Atlantic Ocean in like hurricane season sometimes. And it took quite in this relationship for me to actually realize, actually, like, hang on, yeah, this is something that I recognize, and it's not something that everyone has their flaws, I guess, but it's something that I'm aware of, and something that I'm actively seeking to address when it comes out, because sometimes my anxiety isn't founded in anything that he's doing,
Can I ask you a question? As an individual, of course, how do you differentiate? There's a fine line maybe between moments where your anxiousness is founded and when it's not founded. And also what I started theorizing about this like anxiously ambivalent avoided thing or whatever is that sometimes the reason to be upset is valid, but the proportion is overblown. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah. That's a really good question. If you're talking about the concept of relationships, I feel like there ultimately has to be some baseline level of justified trust in a relationship. And I feel like where it can perhaps become disproportionate is when they have given a track record of being reliable and safe, and, generally, their words being congruent with their actions, versus if they've never demonstrated any of that integrity, then I would say the anger is somewhat justified. But if they have, that's when I would say it's not justified, if that makes sense. So I almost feel like it's like you do an ongoing risk assessment when you're in a relationship of the guy, whether you should be doing it. And this is where self-awareness, I think, comes in as well. Because I like to, when I get annoyed or annoyed at a situation in general, I like to sometimes step back and think, okay, is this person annoying me, or are they triggering something within me that I've been through before? Sometimes it's both. So it can be, two truths can exist at the same time, but also checking in, with yourself to see, okay, what past experiences have I had that have been similar to this? Am I potentially bringing in those past experiences into this new situation as well? But yeah. And again, I think a healthy man as well, because, there's been times when I have absolutely lost my shit, but he recognized that I was justified in losing my shit because he did something that was very hurtful as well. But, these things are a lot easier to navigate when you're with somebody who's also quite emotionally mature.
Yep, of course. It's a prerequisite, I'd say.
And is aware of their own, because my partner's got avoidant tendencies, and he'll even admit that. Like, he struggles to ask for help when he needs it. And he's openly admitted that as well. So, yeah, I think it's just about being self-aware, but that's also a lot easier to do if you're not with a scrote. I think, like, when you're with a scrote, you're constantly in survival mode.
Yeah. I think like maybe we haven't established that, but like the baseline, like the prerequisites need to be, sensitivity, maturity, really good communication, goodwill, like tons of goodwill. And then growth can happen,
Yeah. I mean, but like when men talk about growth in relationships, they expect like, oh yeah, a woman would be with me if I was broke, so I can hopefully grow into Elon Musk one day. And that's not really what it's, like that delusional sort of, yeah, I'm gonna be like, she has to struggle with me, and then maybe one day I'll be somewhat decent.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be even scroty. I have this very beautiful, amazing friend who's a musician and an artist, and he's broke as fuck. He never got his shit together. And like a lot of his friends, including me, they seem he's so talented and he's handsome. Like he could easily be a rock star, but he's kind of like lost, you know? And like when I try to talk to him about like, oh, like, do you have a plan to do something with yourself? He's like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll fall in love with a girl. And I'm like, and then what? And he's like, yeah, and she'll help me. And I'm like, what?
What?
You'll be her project? Like, how do you see that coming? Like, what? It's a bit sad.
I mean, he just said the quiet part out loud, yeah, but that's what a lot of these guys bet on, and it's like...
In a way, because I know him, he doesn't mean it in a way of using the person. He means it in a way of like, I need saving, and it like in a romantic kind of way, but still, yeah, of course. From an FDS perspective,
Aww.
I would obviously never date him in a million years, but yeah, it's a bit sad.
Why? You don't find a struggling musician who's hoping a wife can do like Captain, you know, save her?
My panties just got so wet.
Captain Save a Broke. Like, obviously, yeah, you know, back to the, I guess, the origin of the episode, I do think like it's just so important as a woman to be independent minded and to recognize that it is possible to meet a high value guy that you're just not compatible with. And I think that's one of the most painful things.
That is so true. Yeah. It's exactly when you meet a guy that is decent, that you like, that you have a good connection with, that's when your FDS values come to the test. And that's exactly what happened with me and this love that I had, because I was like, when we started dating, I'm like, am I still FDS? What's going on? But when I chose myself over him, like there are also other moments, but yeah, I think that's super important to understand. And it's very easy to like just be a big, giant, mushy ball of emotion, because FDS values are not only about relationships. They're first and foremost individual values that pertain to us as individuals that happen to be women, powerful women.
And it's so true about being individual values. And it's always why I say, like, obviously, I think FDS has several non-negotiable principles, but, you know, some of FDS is also very, ultimately, to some degree, what makes a man high value is highly subjective. For some women, it would be a guy who likes to go hiking 7 days a week. That wouldn't be a high value man for me per se, or it wouldn't add to his high valueness because I don't hike, for example. A common one on the subreddit was that a guy has to be earning six figures. Now, I'm from the UK, very few people six figures ever, or, you know, even in London, like very few people get anything close to six figures. And you don't need a six-figure salary to be doing quite well for yourself in the UK. I understand that's different in other countries, you know, like New York, Los Angeles, you know, whatever. So it's also, I think, important to truly think about what high value means to you as well. Because when you're dating and when you're trying to set, you know, values in a life for yourself, it is important that that is authentic to who you are and not just because FDS said so per se.
For sure. For sure. I mean, when I just met this guy, I was meeting guys, I was dating guys, but everything was just very like, no, I didn't take anybody seriously. Also because I knew that I was leaving and I was hungry for inspiration. Personally, I felt like uninspired, and I got so much inspiration from this guy, and like he really just like so much emotions and so much love. And that to me was of high value. Like he poured a lot of value into my life just by being there.
How long were you together?
Very short time, less than 2 months. But we met almost every day, which was not FDS of me at all. Just like with gaps in between for me to catch up on my sleep. But I found it very romantic. It was a really nice love story. And the old me would have just stayed in Israel for him. Yeah, I don't know if it's like... I'm kind of doubting myself. Like, I don't know if it's such a huge feat to say like, oh, I did this anyway, regardless of him being in my life. But in my perspective, I could have thrown this opportunity out the window to stay with him. It was an option that I was considering for like a couple of days.
And how did he react when you told him that you'd have to end it because you're pursuing?
Oh, he knew from the get-go.
Oh.
Like on our first date, I said, I just ordered a plane ticket to go to an interview in Amsterdam. I'm going to do a PhD. He's super supportive. He's still supportive. Like he told me, like when I was sad that we were going to break up, when I was leaving, like, before, he held me and he said that he's really proud of me for pursuing my dreams and that he's 100% behind me and that as long as I'm doing what I need to do, he's happy and he's proud of me. Like he's super, super, super supportive.
Oh.
Hmm.
Star-crossed lovers, eh?
Pardon? Star-crossed? Is that like an impossible love? Kind of like Romeo and Juliet or something else?
It's like Shakespearean, like star-crossed lovers, I think. It's like, yeah. Oh.
Yeah, something like that. I'll just leave you with a little image that I think was like a little moment that kind of was encapsulating this whole dilemma for me. That there was a point in time, I broke up with him for a week when I realized it was an option that we were talking about that he might come with me to Amsterdam.
Okay.
No, don't get excited. Because at some point I realized like I need to give an answer back to my research institute. Anyways, we had a conversation. I realized he's not going to come with me. And I broke up with him because I didn't see any point in continuing. That lasted for a week. But in this breakup, which felt very real and very sad, I hugged him. And while I was hugging him, I tried my best, like, not to cry. And I was thinking, do I really need to leave him? Like, maybe I can stay. And at that exact moment that I'm thinking that and trying my best not to cry, like the bomber planes, the fighter planes were going above my house like they always do.
Okay.
And I was like, they're not bombing my house. Like, of course, they're bombing the Palestinians. But just the sound that is reminding of the war that's going on above your head while I was holding it, that was like, it felt like a moment out of a movie. And it was so hard not to cry in that moment.
Yeah, that's such a powerful imagery as well. And I think that you've basically exemplified the complexities of sometimes a high value relationship with a guy as well, because it can, lead to these sorts of dilemmas, and it can also potentially derail a woman from what she is supposed to be doing if she is not aware of what her actual like goals and aspirations are. And I'm not saying that, this guy was gonna deliberately, take you off track and off what you wanted to do. From the sounds of it, he seems very supportive of whatever, but I can imagine that could have easily gone a different way. And a woman might think, oh wow, I met the love of my life, I got a PhD, but I turned it down just so I could be with this guy,
And you know what? I'm also going to leave like a little room for skepticism because I think that's important. If a woman decides to do that and she chooses the guy over the professional opportunity, I support that. If somebody else wants to do that, I think that's fair enough. I think part of feminism is accepting that every woman has her own goals. And if a woman's goals is to have a big family and be a stay-at-home mom, that's totally fair. It's not my goal. But yeah, thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, and it's also, recognizing as well that, like you said, that, women, we have different goals, but it's also important that those goals are also authentic. And I think that's the real challenge as well. So if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, that's fine, but make sure that it's truly, truly, truly what you want. And just to have a lot more male audacity and go after what you want unapologetically. Because, yeah, these men, I mean, there is a fine line between having hope for the future and just being absolutely delusional. And a lot of these scrotes definitely jump that line with hoping that, yeah, I can fuck around in my 20s, 30s, and 40s because men get, better looking over time. And, I'll still have 20-year-olds wanting me when I'm in my 50s, sort of thing. And it's like, no scrote.
Yeah, finding a good one is not trivial. Finding a good one is not trivial.
Yeah. But at the same time, like I've also said before, is like, if you've had it once, you can and will have it again. It's just a matter of time.
Definitely. It's like, it's something that's living inside of us. And then I don't want to sound too hippie, but it manifests in reality through our belief in ourselves.
100%. And, your output into the world as well. So, and I guess sometimes I'm a bit of a doom prophet in that I think like all men are waste men and just bottom tier trash, but then there is a huge number of them that are not like that as well. If finding one of them is your goal, then I guess it is, part of that is being open and being willing to be vulnerable to some degree.
Absolutely.
But thank you for sharing, Patricia. And yeah, let us know if you've had any similar stories. It'll be interesting to hear from women who have gone through something similar or have dated a high value man and ended it for whatever reason to pursue their higher aspirations. Let us know how that went and how that felt for you in the comments.
And thank you so much, Savannah, for listening to my story and developing all these interesting ideas. I feel inspired. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. No, that was a really, really cool episode. And it felt like going back to FDS fundamentals as well.
Back to the basics.
Yeah, and it should be straight. It should be simple dating a high value man because they don't come with all the bullshit baggage of scrotes. But at the same time, it's like sometimes these sorts of situations is good to talk about because it highlights sometimes the complexities of finding a guy that you really like.
Yeah, the edges of the theory, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And, seeing a guy you like and, wondering how, if or when it's going to work out. So, yes.
Nice.
Okay, that's our show. Thanks for listening, queens, and for all you scrotes out there.
Solve your own problems. You're not our project.
And die mad whilst you're at it. See you next week.